This video will go through the 8 possible actions a player may take during their turn in the game Supply Chain, the card game. Each player is allowed up to 2 actions per turn, but they cannot be the same identical action. Let's start with the purchase action. A player may buy 1 card from any of these 5 areas: the 6 listed property cards, contract cards, vehicle cards, offices, or the stale sale pile, which will appear after a few rounds. And remember, properties from the stale sale pile are half price. A player may not do the same action in a turn. However, purchasing from 2 different areas does not count as the same action. So you cannot buy 2 properties from the listed properties, nor 2 vehicles, nor 2 contracts. But you can buy a listed property and a vehicle, or a listed property and a contract, or a vehicle and a contract, or a contract and a stale sale property, or a listed property and a stale sale property, and so on. But these 2 different purchases are 2 actions and take up the entire turn. And remember, all money from purchases go into the bank. Then we have the sell action. A player may sell, buy, or swap cards with another player. The only permitted transactions are 1 card for money, 1 card for another card, 1 card for 2 cards, or 1 card for a card and money. There must always be compensation. Cards may never be given to another player. And in a co-op game, if you sell a card to your partner, it must be for the listed price on the card. Next is the swap action. A player may exchange a card in their hand for any of the listed cards as long as the listed card has a lesser price than the card in their hand. So in this example, there's a sawmill in with the listed properties that I would like to have. In my hand is the dairy farm that I do not need. Since the price of the dairy farm is more than the sawmill, I can swap the 2. So you can always swap down. The next action we'll talk about is setting up shop, or also called place or placement action. Lay down 1 card, such as an office or property card with no requirements, or lay down a block of cards. Along with placement is replacement. A player will use this place action to replace a contract with a producing property. Any replaced contract cards go back to the contract deck. And when you're doing a placement action, you can always throw in an office somewhere if you need to. Now we come to the ever important revenue action. Collect all money produced on a revenue route. A revenue route starts at an office, collecting the money produced by that office, and then moves along linked cards until a dead end or it reaches another office. Players do not collect any money from the office that stops the revenue route. A route may not move across a card more than once or back up over previous cards. Remember, businesses produce an extra $50 for every required producer that shares the same street. Since it's nearly impossible to plan ahead, we have the reorganize action. Without adding cards, a player may reorganize their placed cards. Make sure reorganization does not ruin the supply chain of any blocks. If reorganization creates any unnecessary cards, then they go back to be repurchased. Property cards would go to the stale sale pile, and any removed contract or vehicle cards would go back to their respective decks. Here I have an office that supplies advertising to 2 of my businesses, but the office is also stopping my revenue route from getting to the second business. So a simple reorganization by moving the shoe store over allows the revenue route to get to it. Reorganization is a moving of 1 or more cards. Spinning a card does not count as reorganization and can be done at any time. A player usually does not want to do this, but they can if they want, and this is the close action. Take a placed card or a block of placed cards back into your hand, keeping in mind of your hand limit and any antitrust laws. You cannot remove a card that would ruin a block. This is the only action where cards go back into your hand. Last, we have the blind purchase action. The reason I am listing it in last is because it is often an action you do when you don't know what else to do. A player purchases the top card on the deck and pays its purchase price minus $50 off. I pulled the smelter. Its price is $200, so I only pay $150. If the player cannot afford the card, Then the card sets to the side, and the player must perform the revenue action, and only that action, on successive turns until the player has enough money to afford the blind purchase card. Those are the 8 possible actions a player can take in their turn, but there are 2 more items to discuss along these lines. There are 2 actions that can be taken at the same time, the dual action of place and reorganize. This dual action is needed because of the complexity of placing new cards and blocks and the need to reorganize to share resources of these new blocks. And keep in mind that this dual action is 2 actions and will take up the player's entire turn. And finally, there is a free action a player can take at any time, and that is the discard action. At any time, a player may abandon 1 or more cards, expelling them from their hand, or place cards. A place card can be abandoned as long as its expulsion does not ruin a place block. Abandoned property cards go to the stale sale pile, and abandoned contract or vehicle cards go back to their respective decks. Those are the actions a player may take during the game Supply Chain, the card game. Again, if you're ever unsure about what action to take, try the blind purchase, or you can always collect revenue, or look through the listed property cards, find the one with the highest victory points, purchase it, and then work toward getting its requirements to place it into your business empire.